Good afternoon. You're watching Businessworld Live here on One News. I'm Jess De Los Santos. Let's take a look at how the local bourse closed today, Tuesday. Okay, another bargain hunting right before a close pairing. The index from a day in the red. The PSEi has been trading on the downside for most part of the session, even declining more than 8% to 6,651. But a quick turnaround as trading was about to conclude. Shares jumped by 8% to end at 6,855 spot 44. Now, we spoke to Luis Limlingan of Regina Capital earlier in the program, and he said foreign investors might have decided to stick it out considering that GDP was double digits in the second quarter. You have earnings for the quarter also rebounding. COVID numbers more manageable, according to him, at least compared to other countries. Plus, you have vaccines already coming out. True enough, foreign investors have been taking in local stocks for 6 straight days here, with net purchases today at least at 307 million pesos. But Limlingan still cautions it's better to hold short term for now, given the way we're moving from one restriction to the next. We really cannot forecast that long due to volatility. Luis, though, is still being big on tech stocks, given that they are benefiting from the transition to remote setups. Hence, investors are putting a lot of weight on telco stocks. And we saw that happening with Globe last week, especially amid talks of a possible IPO of its fintech arm Mint, which operates Gcash. But more developments on Globe today. It inked a separate deal with Metrobank and BPI for loans worth 10 billion pesos and 3 billion pesos respectively. That's going to form part of their the raise in their capex this year to 76 billion pesos from 70 billion pesos previously. Now, most of that funding will go to building a data network. That development came in after close. Let's see how that's going to affect movement for tomorrow. For today, at least, Globe on a 2-day decline, lower by 4.5% to 2,720. Now, from one of the day's worst performers, let's go head on to the day's outperformer, Aboitiz Power. The stock made a jump of as much as 10% earlier today over expectations that a disruption in power supply might actually lead to higher rates. Japitan Chanko of Philstock says the disruption is due to a problem in First Gen's Avian power plant. Now, the shortage, he says, could raise electricity spot prices, potentially benefiting Aboitiz Power. Aboitiz Power pared back those gains, but still edged higher by 6.9% to end at 28 pesos apiece. Here are other headlines we're keeping our eyes on. The highly infectious Delta variant is now the dominant variant in the Philippines. That's according to the World Health Organization. The WHO says this is based on recent samples submitted by the Philippine Genome Center. Close to 70% of the 748 samples submitted tested positive for the Delta variant. The WHO also noted community transmission of the Delta variant, which explains the ongoing spike in cases. The health department says the government has implemented the appropriate response against the more transmissible variant. The DOH insists the government has already acted as if community transmission is already present even before today's confirmation from the WHO. This comes amid problems in compensating health workers who are protesting delayed benefits. The health department says it has disbursed over 237 million pesos worth of special risk allowances to medical workers. Now, inflation is expected to breach the government's target of 2 to 4% for the month of August. The Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas sees consumer price growth to come in between 4.1 and 4.9% for the month. This is driven by higher LPG prices and electricity costs. Philippine Star reports higher transmission costs, which pushed Meralco's overall rate in August. Lower domestic oil prices, meanwhile, is expected to cushion the spike in prices. The Philippine Statistics Authority will release the August inflation data on September 7th. Retailers are pleading for faster vaccine rollout, warning that the industry is now on the verge of collapse following 3 major lockdowns since March last year. Philippine Retailers Association Vice Chairman Roberto Claudio urges the government to rush the delivery dates of vaccines ordered and allow the private sector to acquire the shots directly to vaccinate their employees. Claudio is emphasizing the need for the government to accelerate the vaccine rollout to help the industry recover. Business and government officials have been proposing vaccine bubbles where vaccinated people can move freely. But Claudio says the current problem is the lack of customers, and the solution cannot be anchored on the selection of who can enter business establishments. He says retailers have lost up to 90% of their pre pandemic level output, and the minimal customer foot traffic and lockdowns have depleted their cash reserves. Claudia says that for as long as strict mobility curbs persist and customers are not allowed to come out, there is no business for stores and restaurants. Moody's Analytics also flags vaccine shortages as well as ineffective social distancing measures, saying the country's recovery is still marred by less effective management of the pandemic. The government has so far administered more than 33 million shots, with over 13.7 million Filipinos now fully vaccinated. Given all those concerns, a call for a bakuna bubble has been gaining momentum among members of the private sector, from malls to bus liners. Now, is the electronic sector also backing the move? To discuss that, we have Semiconductor and Electronics Industries in the Philippines, or SEIPI President Danilo Lachica. Good afternoon, Sir Dan.
Good afternoon, Jess, and to your viewers. How are you?
All right, doing great, sir. I hope you're doing it just as fine. First, give us an idea how the current spate of strict lockdowns is hampering the sector's potential and industry, which of course has the lion's share of the country's exports.
Well, as you know, the export industry has been running at 100%. We've, you know, worked with IATF and DTI. So from a shutdown last year in March, we've slowly scaled back up to 100% capacity to date. Of course, we've been having some issues initially with supply chain and, of course, disruptions in manpower, transportation. But we've pretty much, albeit at a higher cost, we've pretty much resolved those issues. So we're running at 100%. In 2020, we've actually accounted for 39.7 or close to $40 billion of our commodity exports, 62% of the country's commodity exports. So we're doing well, but of course, we're still concerned about the vaccines and the variants that are upon us. So those are the concerns and we would really like to see, as the Retailers Association echoed, we'd like to see an acceleration of the vaccine delivery. As we know, NCR has been getting most of the vaccines, and for understandable reasons, right? But I think eventually, especially for Region 4A, where most of our companies are, we have something like 300,000 workers in Region 4A. We'd like to see an acceleration of the vaccine deployment in those provinces.
Mhm. Now, what else do you think are the measures necessary to speed up vaccination efforts, like what you mentioned beyond NCR, especially in Region 4A? What do you think should be done, especially in terms of procuring vaccines?
Well, there's a couple of things. Just to give you an idea, about 15%, an average of about 15% of our workers have been vaccinated.
Mhm.
And most of them are actually wanting to be vaccinated. Maybe 10% or so, 10 to 14% are kind of hesitant, but that can be resolved with education among the workers. But the biggest problem really is the availability of supply, whether it's from the LGU. In fact, one company just reported about 3% vaccination level, and this is in Batangas. Laguna is doing better, Cavite is doing better, but then again, 10 to 15%, that's still much less than what we would have liked. The other option really is for the DOH to grant full authorization for the use of certain vaccines. Of course, it's going to be a database decision, but what that will do is allow private sector to order directly from the manufacturers. For instance, Pfizer has been given full authorization
Mhm.
in the United States, so companies are willing to order Pfizer, and Moderna and the like. There seems to be, while Sinovac and the China-made vaccines are probably the most available. For some reason, some of the workers are kind of hesitant to use Sinovac because of some data that's been published that it's got lower efficacy compared to, AstraZeneca or Moderna or Pfizer. But then again, our philosophy still is the best vaccine is the one you have
Mhm.
available and it's in your arm.
Now, moving over from vaccines this time to what we were reporting earlier about the bakuna bubble, a bubble rather. I mean, like what you
Yeah.
mentioned, the sector at least operational, in terms of operation, they're at 100%. So, how could a bakuna bubble potentially benefit SEIPI?
Well, I took a survey among our members, and a lot of them are multinationals. Obviously, the concern for the multinational CEOs is the perceived discrimination. But, the reality is it's not really discriminating against the unvaccinated, but it's more of actually protecting them as well.
Mhm.
If you have, of course, the bakuna bubble is being proposed in NCR. And conceptually, it sounds very reasonable. I mean, the unvaccinated people will be allowed to go out, go to work, go to the malls. And the vaccinated people obviously are going to have more mobility. Not only will they be allowed in malls, but also in other areas, especially those that, the establishments that would allow vaccinated people to come in. And in our bakuna bubble forum yesterday, PA Joey Concepcion mentioned that former Chief Justice Panganiban also said that it's not against the law to do something like this because, again, we're trying to balance economy versus
Mhm.
protection of the individuals. In fact, even DOTR was talking about having dedicated buses for the vaccinated. But also there was mention also that apparently in the Constitution there are certain decisions that government can do for the common good, in which in this particular case the common good would be for the vaccinated people. And but then again, in fairness, we need to expedite the deployment of vaccines because some of those unvaccinated people want to be vaccinated, but it's just the availability of the vaccine. So the long and the short of it is that most semiconductor CEOs are all for the bakuna bubble, and I think if there is a clarity in the fact that there's
Mhm.
no discrimination involved, that this is not against the Constitution, then there will be more believers and supporters of this bakuna bubble. But personally, I support it, and hopefully, we'll see the success in NCR and the deployment in the rest of the nation, the rest of our
Mhm.
country.
Now, focusing more on your growth targets for the year, you are maintaining that 7% growth forecast. The DTI, in
Yes.
fact, was expecting an upward adjustment at least. What could potentially lead to better growth figures for the industry?
Well, as you know, we export and supply to the global market, and with the advancements in technologies and the preponderance of new products and new technologies, whether those that are related to devices used for working from home or electric vehicles or self-driving cars, Internet of Things, electronics products are everywhere. So the demand is strong. The thing is today we're actually supply constrained, and what I specifically mean is that because of COVID, some of the semiconductor equipment manufacturers throttled their production, and as a result, they were not able to respond to the recovery or the opening up of the industry again. And so that 7% could have been much bigger had we not interrupted the supply of wafers, which we import. Which is again, if you look at the supply chain, the wafers are constrained by the availability of capacity driven by the semiconductor wafer equipment supply.
Okay, lastly, before we let you go, Sir Dan, you also lamented the decline in electrical and computer engineering graduates. By how much of a drop are we seeing, and what's causing the low turnout, and how can this problem be addressed?
Well, we have about 350 members in our organization, and 40 of those are actually university members. And when we have our university members meeting, it was reported that there has been a significant decline of the ECE and electrical engineering graduates. And so when you look at the root causes, well, you asked about the numbers. Depending on the location, maybe about between 5 to 20%. The university are seeing a drop between 5 to 20%. And the reasons are varied. And I'll just go through some of them. First of all, ECE is not an easy course. There's a lot of advanced mathematics, calculus, a lot of computation. So, some people are averse to that, and the fact that it's not an easy course, the content itself, plus the fact that after they graduate, they're going to have to take the board exam, and again, more math, more calculus subjects. But I think the other determinant really is the availability of jobs and the knowledge of what jobs are available. And as the industry grows, I think, in fact, one of the things that we're going to do, you talk about the measures we're going to take, is go on a campaign and roadshow to explain in the universities, virtual forum, the opportunities and the jobs that are available in the electronics industry and other industries that are out there. And secondly, we formed the Sector Skills Council in working with PBED to identify the gaps between the industry and what the university cranks out. And so we're going to be working on closing these gaps. And also we're working with DTI and TESDA to develop the supply chain, if you will, for the technical resources that our industry needs. So there are several things that have been set into motion to address these needs. But I think it's really more of educating the students and reaching out to them and to explain the bright career that are in front of them, careers and professions that are in front of them by taking up these courses.
All right, talk about aversion to mathematics, something I can really definitely relate to. Thank you very much for your time this afternoon. SEIPI President, Sir Dan Lachica. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Jess. Stay safe. Bye-bye.
And those are the biggest stories this trading day, August 31, 2021. Catch Businessworld live again tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. for the market open and 3:15 p.m. for the market close. I'm Jess Delos Santos, and we are One News. Mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines.